Greetings and welcome to the Halloween edition of the Sliders Review. And I'm here today to talk to you about Vacancy, the 2007 movie. Holy crap, I never knew how intense and how good this movie is. Like, I've heard of it before and I've seen the cover, but I just never paid it no attention. I didn't even assume what it was about, I'm just like, okay, Vacancy, whatever. They look kind of scared. Maybe it's like a slasher. Who knows? You know what I'm saying? Like, I never heard nobody ever talk about this movie. I had no idea they had a prequel movie and everything. And then it just kind of went flat and you don't hear nothing about it. And so I just completely forgot about it. And then I've had it on my Pluto for about like a year or two. And I've been wanting to watch it just to see what it's about because, it had Kate Beckinsale in it, and I'm a huge fan of hers. And so, but then I completely forgot about it again. And so I finally watched it. Oh, crap. Like, my God. Like, if you've ever watched any of my videos before, and if you ever heard me talk about like horror movies or slasher movies, then I rarely get scared. I was scared watching this. Like, it's like crap, dude. This was an intense movie and everything. From like the acting to the snuff films to the banging on the door to them being videotapes where they don't every move they make is being watched to you don't know who's all in it, and it's just like, man. I didn't get done watching this until like 4 a.m, I think. Or maybe it was 3 a.m. I can't remember, but it was like really late. And I'm like, I need to go to bed. I'm like, no, I gotta finish watching this. And it's just like, yeah, it had me on the edge of my seat. My eyes were like wide open. I haven't been this like, I can't even think of a word to use right now. I'm about to say crapified. When watching a movie, because like a good long time, it's like, this is what the Stranger movie should have been, in my opinion. Now, it was funny watching this because as I'm watching this, I'm all like, there are a lot of similarities to the Stranger movies and stuff when watching this movie. It's like both deal with home invasions. Both deal with for whatever reason, a cell phone doesn't work. This movie is crazy because when I started watching, I started thinking of the first Stranger movie that came out a year right after this movie came out. Now, the Stranger movies were supposedly based on real life events from like the writer director's life growing up and home invasions and stuff like that. I truly want to believe that maybe, yeah, that is true, but maybe, just maybe, he got a little inspiration from this movie. It's just kind of weird that both couples in both movies are on the brink of divorce. They can't get along. They're pissed at each other. They just came back from a party and everything, and they're bickering. That's too much of a similarity to me. But these movies do differ quite a lot. You know what I'm saying? So it's not like a complete rip-off in my opinion, but I think it's a slight rip-off and everything. Also, when the guy goes outside, there just happened to be a scene where he's almost crushed or is crushed by another car and everything. It's just weird similarities. However, I truly believe that Strangers Chapter 1 completely ripped this movie off. I mean, it's been about 18 years or so. So they had plenty of time to rip off another movie. Now, we know when it comes to the chapter versions of Strangers, they pretty much just copied and pasted what the other two Stranger movies did. That happened over 20 years ago and stuff. But as I'm watching this, and instead of two couples that can't get along, because that's what chapter 1 was about, they could actually get along with each other. It's the car and the mechanic. It's just kind of like, here they are, they're driving, and I'm talking about vacancy, they're driving, they're in a town that they're not familiar with. The car breaks down, they go to a mechanic, and like, he's supposed to fix their car but screws it up so they can stay stuck in a motel. Strangers, chapter one, they go to like a diner. There are some mechanics who are like across the street. Then when the couple goes back into their car, all of a sudden it doesn't work, and these mechanics are like, "Oh, we'll fix it and everything," being the ones who disabled their car to begin with, and just so they can go to like a place that is secluded from like everybody else, like society and everything, and for them to get like a home invasion and people try to kill them and everything. There's even a scene where they're like crawling around in a small little crawl space, similar to the Vacancy movie and everything. And like, where in Strange Vacancy both survive, but you thought the guy was originally dead. The female in chapter one of Strangers, she survives and everything. It's just little cherry picking here and there and twisting things around. But I truly believe the chapter one movie completely ripped off Vacancy and everything. But, when it comes to the Stranger movies, I've never been a fan of them, really. Like, honestly, I never have. I found them to be kind of odd and a little lackluster because the killers, they just kind of goof around and play around in the house and taunt them and start dancing around the music, acting weird, and they will show up behind them and disappear, and and like don't do nothing. And it is always just kind of like an oddball type movie, you know what I'm saying? But Vacancy is like, in my opinion, superior to that of the Stranger movies in every single way possible. Like, yeah, there are times in Vacancy they do make a little stupid decisions and stuff, but for the most part, the guy in the movie makes like all the right choices. Like he's like, he's like thinking about stuff, he's preparing and everything, he's studying the killers and stuff. Like, he's really smart as opposed to that of the Stranger movies where they just make one dumb mistake after like another. And it's ironic that there happen to be three killers in both franchises and stuff. And so, yeah, I truly believe the Stranger movies decided to rip off, the Vacancy movie. Like, it's too much of a coincidence. Like, it's just too much of a coincidence. Now, in Vacancy, I wish they would have had better masks, or at least the one or the two guys did. Their masks kind of suck. Like, I was looking more for like a horror movie, slasher movie type costume, but nah, you don't get that. You just get some weird looking mask and everything. But man, like, I can't believe what I just watched. And the most horrifying part was the snuff film part, which I never knew those things existed. Like, what in the world is wrong with society and everything? Like, that was the most horrifying part of the entire movie because of how brutal the murders were and how good the screaming and hollering were. It's what I want to see in slasher movies. And I've been wondering for the longest time, why? Why don't you get that type of like brutality in a slasher movie? Well, because it is brutality. They have to have like ratings and censors and all this other stuff. And, like they can't do that because they will lose their R rating and have to go to like an NC like 17 or something like that, which I think the original Scream started to be. And they had to keep editing it to get like the R rating and stuff. And even now, if you ever watch like Scream, there are two deleted scenes from the original Scream movie that was in the VHS and the theatrical movie that are not in none of the DVDs and none of the Blu-rays or nothing like that. It's the gut scene and it's the stabbing over and over at the end of the movie. Those had to be completely taken out. And it's weird like watching the Scream movie on DVD because I'm expecting to see those parts and I don't. And so, yeah, that's probably why you never see. And this is probably also why it was on the snuff part because, they're watching it on the screen and it's pretty tiny and they'll hope that you wouldn't like, make it out and everything. Now, the snuff part, ironically, there's the full version on the DVD. I read that online. Kind of disturbing, if you ask me. Now, this movie has interesting marketing, like especially when the internet was starting to pop in like the early 2000s. They put out like a number you can call and it will link to the fictional motel in this movie, voiced by that of like, the actor who played like Mason and everything. Frank Wally and stuff. Or Whaley. But yeah, it's like Frank Welly and everything. He like voiced it for a while, but then they disconnected it in 2015. So the movie was directed by Hungarian director Nimrod Antal and written by Mark L. Smith. Now, Sarah Jessica Parker from Sex and the City, she was supposed to play the lead in this movie but backed out for I forget why. And so Kate Beckinsale replaced her. Now I really like Kate Beckinsale in this movie. It's the first time, no, actually this is the second time I've heard her within a fake American accent. The first time was Click, but I know her best from like the Underworld movies that first came out in the year 2003. And she started off as like a model, then started doing stuff in Britain, then moved her way on to Hollywood. And that's when people really started to notice her internationally because of the Underworld movies. And it's a shame those movies started to go downhill with the last two entries because the first three was really good, but she wasn't in the third one. She was only in all the others. And so, like, I miss seeing her act because she's a really good actress. And, like, I feel really bad for her lately because she seems to be going through a lot right now. Like, her parents both died. She has lost a lot of weight. And she said it's due to stress and grief and everything. And whenever fans bring it up, she gets pissed at them and stuff, which what most celebrities do when talking about their weight. But fans are only concerned because she has lost a lot of weight and stuff. And like, but a lot of fans do get on to her about like some unnecessary stuff that pisses her off. They want to know why she keeps wearing a giant bow in her head because she wants to, plain and simple as that. Some people feel like she's not acting her age because of the bow in her head, and like she dates younger men in their 20s and 30s. At least I think they're 20. How old is Pete Davidson? Is he in his 30s? So I guess somewhere in like the 30s or something like that. Lord, why would she ever date Pete Davidson? Like, good thing he finally got his act together because, yeah. And, like, so she's always clapping back at people, but I don't know. It's just, I hope she's doing better and everything because she has been acting slightly peculiar at times and, stuff like that. And like Luke Wilson, he's in this movie, and you know, I've seen that man in a lot of stuff. I think the first thing was probably Scream, like when he played Pretend Billy Loomis, in that Stab movie and everything, and like, or Scream 2, that was it. When he played the fake Billy Loomis and everything, and saw him in something else. I can't remember what else, but I also saw him in Stargirl. And the thing is, it's like, he's not a bad actor. I've just never really like, been like wild, what I'm saying, about his acting and stuff. It's just like it's there. But man, he made a believer out of me in this movie playing the lead. Like, he was smart, he was manly, he was tough and everything. And it's just like, yeah, I was surprised, like, oh wow, like, dude got some chops and everything. And so, like I said before, the movie's about like a couple, and they came back from a party, and they cannot get along. They're just constantly bickering in the car about like the smallest thing. She doesn't like the way he drives. He doesn't like the way she eats an apple because she cut her finger on the knife, like peeling it and stuff. And she's grieving over their dead child and everything. And so as they're driving and hitting potholes, this and that, something's wrong with the car. And they pull into like a mechanic's place. And next to the mechanic's place is the Pinewood Motel. It's like an old seedy roach motel, right? And the mechanic is played by Ethan Emery. And I remember this dude from a lot of stuff like Sweet Home Alabama and like that movie with Jennifer Love Hewitt in it, that teen romance movie. All I can't remember it, but not another teen movie spoofed it, and like he was in like The Walking Dead, and he was in not Enchanted, but that Disney show Once Upon a Time. That's it. And so I've seen him in a lot of stuff, and he's acting really nice. He's offering to help, like fix the car, and because that's his job and everything. And so, like, he's fixing it, and he's just acting. He's a little creepy, but he's in a happy, nice kind of creepy way. And so they go all about their way. And the first thing that popped in my head is, I bet he messed with the car. Like, I just bet he messed with the car. See, the problem is, before I watched this movie, like most movies, I watched the trailer. So I knew, it was going to be like an invasion and stuff like that. But I knew the clerk at the motel was going to be one of them, but I didn't know who the other two guys were. But I just had a feeling it might be him. 2 miles down the road, and the car breaks down, and pissed off as she is, like when, he started like to walk back to the motel, he said something to piss her off, and she just storms off walking down like the highway and everything in the middle of the night. So they go to like the motel, and right from the bat, like the manager dude is as creepy can be. And they start hearing a lot of screaming in the background. So he's watching a movie, but it's just something so seedy about him. And so when they get their rooms, the rooms are disgusting. There are roaches, the water's brown. She says she's gonna sleep in her clothes. He said he's gonna sleep in his shoes. And then it happens and stuff. Like, they decide to watch a movie. He thinks it's like an adult movie or something. But then he starts to notice it's a horror movie and people are brutally getting murdered. But then he starts to recognize, the husband starts to recognize oh wait, let me tell you what these people's names are. So Mason is the manager at the motel. Mechanic dude has no name. And it's David and Amy are the couple. And so like, David realizes something, that like the murders in that room are from the same motel room that they are in. So he realizes there's a camera somewhere, and he finds it in the vent. This is when they get freaked out, and like they have no way to like leave there because the mechanic is no longer there, and they have to wait till the morning for him. And now they know they're being spied on, and that 3 people have killed a bunch of people in multiple videos. Then that's when like, the banging on the door starts, and it's loud banging, freaking them out. And it's just getting louder and louder, and it's like a pattern to the way they bang. And then all of a sudden, the room next to them, that door starts to bang. And it's like there's nobody else staying at the motel and everything. And, I think at one point they made the stupid mistake of opening the door before looking out the peephole and stuff. And then later on, they found out that, the murders in the room and stuff, because I think somebody started banging first. Then he went to the manager asking who's the person in the room next door. He said like nobody. So then they watched the videos and more banging and stuff like that. So freaked out and everything, they turn off the lights. They don't know what they're gonna do. They go to like the bathroom in the window, and not only is it too small, but it's like nailed shut. They know they are now screwed, but they don't know like by who or what. But they know the manager must be in on it, and they assume the mechanic is as well. So, like the husband does one of the smartest things I've ever seen in a horror movie. As the wife is like, scared and hiding somewhere, he's watching the snuff films and everything, trying to learn the pattern of the killers and everything, trying to find some type of weakness that they might have. And he realizes that, after the banging and all this and that, they wait a couple of minutes because they're trying to scare people at first, and then one of them gets into the room. But how the world does he get into the room right before the door is open and stuff? And so he's looking around and he's in the bathroom, and it's like how, you know what I'm saying? And he realizes there's a trap door in the bathroom. Now it's odd because both him and her, they go down in the trap hole and they're in like a little tunnel, and they start like crawling their way through. Now, what are the odds the killer might be down there? But they're not. But a bunch of rats are, and she's claustrophobic. But he's, telling her, we have to get through this, hold my leg, this and that. They end up in like the manager's office, and where they're able to use the phone to try to call the police, because when he left earlier and tried to call the police on a payphone, this is when one of the killers ran into like the payphone booth and chased them back into the room. But right before they're about to call, in comes the manager and everything. So they have to leave and go back down there. Luckily, there's another set of tunnels that goes in a different direction, and they end up in like another room and stuff. And so trapped in the motel, knowing there's no way for them to get out. And if they are able to get out, they're going to have to head back to the highway where they can be seen, but they're woods, so it'll be smart for them to get to the woods. Only problem is they cannot leave because there are killers surrounding the place, 3 of them and stuff. And it's really intense because when they first tried to make their way out, here come all the killers in like 3 different directions. So as they're hiding in the room and the lights are out, they're trying to make makeshift weapons out of like glass and stuff. And then like they see a trucker. Now he's smart enough to be all like, we don't know the trucker, he might be in on this. But she's like, nah, we can like get away with the trucker and stuff. Boy, and the freaking trucker is the one buying the snuff films and everything. So he's in on it too. So they're even more scared. Well, at some point, she managed to like call the police at one point. And so the cop shows up, and it's an older, overweight cop. Why do they always send those people and stuff? And so like, they're worried. They're like, can we trust the cop? Can we not? Like, he might be in on this, but the cop is not. And he discovers the films and he's freaking out. And so they all like, by the way he came out, they know they can trust him. So they flag him down and like they get in his car, but then he ends up getting killed. And so they try to take the rifle out, like, his car, but they can't. So this is when they make their way back to the room. He tricks the killers into thinking the wife like escaped and everything by taking off a piece of her clothing, busting the bathroom window and putting her clothing on the bathroom window, making the people think that she just like escaped into the woods. He makes her hide in like a vent type thing, and he's gonna make his way out and try to look for the killers, but then they end up stabbing him the moment he opens the door. She stays there all night long as the other killers are like running in the woods looking for her and stuff. She makes her way back into the tunnel and like gets over her claustrophobia and goes back into like, the room, the manager's room. And then now that David is taken out, Amy is left to take on all 3 killers. And she fights them all off, which is a little odd because she doesn't look like she's a fighter, and not only that, but all throughout the movie, she's making every worst decision you can probably make in a horror movie and stuff. And because like what happened was in the morning, the manager is looking for her, right? And so he tells the other two guys, go outside, look for her. And so as soon as like, he's gonna what is it like leave, I think she gets down and he hears her land on the floor, comes back in, and so they're fighting on the ground, and she runs out, she hops in his car and or somebody else's car, and like all of a sudden one of the killers jumps on top of the car trying to get in, so she floors it towards back to the hotel trying to crash the car, and she's able to do that, but then she plows into the mechanic and everything. So he's trapped between the car and the wall and he dies. The dude on top of the car is dead, and then there's just Mason left and everything. But she's able to shoot him dead and everything because he had guns in his office and stuff. Once she does that, she calls the police. Now, one thing I did not understand was like, how is she just all of a sudden so like, like fighty and everything? I think it's because since Kate is from the underworld movies, they're all like, all right, she needs to find a way to kill the killers. And since she's not very hand-to-hand combat-y, then we'll just have her get in the car and run people over and stuff and shoot the dude. So I can buy that, you know what I'm saying? So, but another thing I didn't understand is that once the cop never showed back up at night and it's all the way in the morning, why didn't they send more patrols out? So when she calls the police, they're all like, well, we sent the cop out there last night. It's like, well, they killed him and everything. Like, why didn't they send more patrols out? So she goes back to the motel. She's grieving over her husband. And boom, all of a sudden he wakes up. Like, he's not actually dead from the stabbing. And so, and then it like ends and everything. So I watched this on Pluto for free. But like I said before, there is another movie. It came out a year prior in 2008, and it is a prequel. Now, the trailer to the prequel is very dismal and everything. And so I'm not going to watch that. And it's free on Tubi, but I'm still not going to watch it. It's a bigger cast. And it doesn't make sense. I'm not quite sure how it connects to the first movie. See, the killer is the mechanic, some random guy whose name we never know, and Mason, the dude who works at the motel, the Pinewood Motel. Well, in the prequel, there's a couple, and the couple, a dude named Smith, kills his wife, and he kills her in the motel. Now, at this motel, it's the Meadow Motel, and they put cameras in people's rooms to catch them having sex and then sell those. But once the manager and stuff finds out what Smith does, they decide, hey, let's make a bunch of snuff movies and stuff. So they start killing, like, the other motel guests and everything. At the end of the movie, Smith goes to the Pine Wood Motel, and then he sells the tape to a trucker. And it's just kind of like, but hold up, though. What about Mason, the mechanic, and the random guy? Like, that's not who Smith is. Like, who the heck is this Smith person? You know what I'm saying? And it's a different trucker. So it's weird how it ties into like the first movie, but somehow it does. So it's like an organization of people who like do this, similar to that of The Strangers chapter 1 and 2. And after that, there were no more vacancy movies, no more prequels, no more sequels. It just ended. And like, yeah, I just think that this was a very intense, very good, very gritty, very scary, like slasher movie and stuff. Like, I had no idea just how good this movie is. And I'm not even tempted to watch the prequel. That wasn't that spooky. All right, well, I shall talk to y'all later. Bye.